Orko Prabhu, you are present?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, Vineet Saroj present? Vipasha Ghosh present?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, present.
Okay, Dianjali De is present?
Present, sir.
Shubhrajyoti is present?
Present,
Shumana
sir.
Banerjee present? Sushmita Shah?
Yes, sir.
Sushmita is also present. Okay. Pallavi Das has joined. Pallavi Das is present. So today the class will be of more of activity oriented, and you shall be taking the class. So I would be requesting Shumona first to introduce the topic and say something. Shumona is there?
Yes, sir. My topic is the main themes of the poem Lady Lazarus. Lady Lazarus was written by Sylvia Plath, a great American poet and short story writer. Lady Lazarus is a bitter dramatic monologue famous for the themes of death and oppression. Plath composed the poem during her most productive and vacant creative period. It is considered one of Plath's best poems. It is commonly interpreted as an expression of Plath's suicidal attempts and impulses. Death, depression, and pain are the major themes of the poem. The standard interpretation of the poem suggests that it is about multiple suicide attempts. When the speaker says she has done it again, she means she has attempted suicide for the third time after one accidental attempt and one deliberate attempt in the past. Each attempt occurred in a different decade, and she is now 30 years old. Now that she has been pulled back to life from this most recent attempt, her sore breath will vanish in a day, and her flesh will return to her bones. However, this recovery is presented as a failure, whereas the suicide attempts are presented as accomplishments. Dying is an art that she performs exceptionally well. She seems to believe she will reach a perfection through escaping her body. The poem can also be understood through a feminist lens as a demonstration of the female artist's struggle for autonomy in a patriarchal society. Lady Lazarus is not merely a confessional poem detailing depressive feelings, but is also a statement on how the powerful male figure uses Plath's creative power, but is defeated by her rebirth. The poem can also be understood in a larger context as a comment on the relationship between poet and audience in a society that has separated creativity and consumption. The crowd views Lady Lazarus or the poet as an object, and therefore they does not recognize her as a human being. Plath reflects this through her multiple references to body parts separated from the whole. The only way she can keep herself intact is destroy herself, and she does this rather than turned into commodities. I think these are the major themes of the poem.
So excellent presentation of the central theme of Sylvia Plath's poem by Shumona. Shumona, can you just enumerate the numbers and just switch on your video if possible? Just what are the central themes point wise? Just make a list of these so that we can understand and remember these themes. Switch on your video if you want.
Okay, sir. Sir, it is about death, depression, pain, and the speaker's suicidal attempts. I think these are the main themes of the poem that I can understand after reading this poem.
Thank you, Shumona, for your excellent presentation. So she has identified the theme revolving
you,
around the
sir.
theme of death, surrounding the central character of Lady Lazarus. Lady Lazarus is the central speaker of this poem, the poet persona, or an imagined persona created by the poet who delivers a speech. Her entire speech revolves around the theme of death, as Shumona has pointed out. So our next presentation will be by Shubhrajyoti. Shubhrajyoti will.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you will make your presentation now. So
Yes, sir.
your
My topic is what is the
switch on your
actually, sir?
video. Video also.
Okay, sir.
Switch on your video.
Okay, sir. So we all know that this poem has been written by Sylvia Plath during his last days. It is an example of confessional poetry, but the title of the poem connects us with mythology. So the title of the poem tells us about the mythical character Lazarus. Sir, can I get some time to prepare myself because I have to go to the washroom.
Okay, okay. So as Shubhrajyoti has already said that the central theme takes its source from Lazarus.
Yes, sir.
Lazarus
So wait a
from
minute.
Bible. Okay, you return, yeah, from Lazarus from Bible. So
Yes,
he's a
sir.
biblical character. Lazarus is a biblical character. And as we know that in a city called Bethany, this Lazarus was very close to Jesus Christ. Lazarus lived in Bethany with his two sisters, Martha and Mary, and Jesus Christ used to roam around the world. When Lazarus became very sick, so the sisters kept on calling for Jesus Christ, but Christ did not come in time. He waited for 4 long days. The death was pronounced, and according to the rituals that were prevalent during those days, 3 days the body was kept, and after that the body was wrapped in linen and then entombed or put in the grave. So on the 4th day, Jesus came, and the sisters accused Jesus for delaying, for not his return, and asked for some kind of miracle to show that actually Jesus matters, that he is the Son of God. Jesus then resurrected Lazarus. Lazarus, in his burial clothes, came out of the grave and appeared before the people. Jesus asked others to remove the linen, the cloth that is wrapped on the body of Jesus. And when finally came, so we have now Shubhrajyoti.
Yes, sir. I'm back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Please
So
narrate the theme.
after the 4 days of his burial, Lazarus incidentally got his life back just because of Jesus Christ. And here in the poem, we can also notice the use of same myth. At the end of the poem, actually, Sylvia Plath insists us to believe that she will rise again from her ashes like a phoenix. So we can interpret that she's actually trying to make us believe that her life will also do the same as Lazarus.
Yes, continue, Shubhrajyoti. The
Okay, sir.
central persona of this poem is Lady Lazarus.
Actually,
So,
we can also interpret that it's a female counterpart of Lazarus Athene.
this image of Lazarus appears even in T.S. Eliot's poem, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock.
Yes, sir.
So, I am Lazarus, come from the dead. Eugene O'Neill also wrote a play named Lazarus laughed. So Lazarus comes out from the land of the dead to say all that, yes, I'm Lazarus, I've returned. The central meaning of this miracle of Jesus Christ is to restore belief and faith in mankind. So
Yes,
in the
sir.
world of non-believers, non-conformists, this is a miracle performed by Jesus. And the same miracle is used as a ritual in Sylvia Plath's poem, Lady Lazarus. Here the lady is resurrecting after 10 years. Every 10 years, for the last 30 years, she has been committing suicide and has been resurrected from her attempted death. So with Shubhrajyoti sum up the use of myth in Lazarus, Lady Lazarus, yes, some of the use of this myth.
Throughout the poem, she actually sum up the myth of Lazarus, because Lazarus got his life back after his death, and she also states in her poem that she will also get back her life after his death, after his after her mortal life will be in ashes.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Ankita Bhattacharya. Ankita Bhattacharya will be speaking on Sylvia Plath as a confessional poet. So last day we discussed
Yes, sir.
that Sylvia Plath is someone who is writing not a confessional autobiography, but the mode that she is using is definitely confessional mode. So Ankita Bhattacharya, please open your video mode on.
Sir, can I start now?
Yes, start. Keep your video mode
Sir,
on.
actually, I am having some network problem for that.
Okay, continue then.
Okay, sir, thank you. Plath as a conventional poet.
Confessional
Poetry.
Confessional poet.
Confessional poet.
Yeah.
Con
Confession.
Confessional poetry is a poetry of the personal or I, where the poet is the speaker. This style of writing emerged in the late 1950s and early 1960s and is associated with the poets such as Robert Lowell, Sylvia Plath, Annie Sexton. In these poems, the speaker takes the reader into the confidence and reveals some dark secret of her soul as a confession. Some of Sylvia Plath's poems belong to his category, like the principal among them being Daddy and Lady Lazarus. When Emil Rosenthal first used the term confessional poetry, he had in mind a phase in Robert Lowell's career when Lowell turned into themes of sexual guilt, alcoholism, confinement in a mental hospital, and developed them in the first person in a way that indeed in Rosenthal's view to point to the poet himself. Rosenthal was careful to limit the possibilities of the mode, but he did name Sylvia Plath as a confessional poet as well, because he said she put the speaker herself at the center of her poems in such a way as to make her psychological vulnerability and shame an environment of her civilization. Here Plath feels that she is the female version of Lazarus, the disciple of Jesus, whom Jesus brought back from the land of the dead. The first confession refers to her is resurrection. She dies and then comes back to life once every decade. It is a reference to her frequent attempts to commit suicide, also hinted at in her poem Daddy. In the second confession, she brings into play the horrible Nazi images of the parts of human corpses being put to use in domestic situations like paperweights and lampshades. These Holocaust images present the narrator as one of the tortured souls enduring tremendous agony before dying. Jew linen refers to clothes in which the corpses is wrapped. Both Lazarus and Jesus had their corpses wrapped up in Jew linen. She also confesses her with death since the age of 10. But when she looks at her hands and legs, she realizes that she is not yet dead but actually alive. and this leads her to speculate about her repeated attempts to embrace death and her miraculous escape from actually dying. She also confesses that though she is not enamored of death and is actually tyrannized by the prospect of dying, still the fascination death holds for her is real and pulsating. She also confesses that dying is an art like everything else. I do it exceptionally well, but it is the coming back, the failure to end her life that disturbs her. Thus she reveals that she is the female version of Lazarus, but it is a role she does not like very much. Her German expression continue, her Lucifer and her God. The juxtaposing of the images blend the opposites together and reveals that for Plath, God and Saturn have lost their separate significances and have merged into one. The red hair referred to by the poet reminds us of the Mandyas, and like them, she would be casually destroying life if faced with an opposition to her, and will not suffer passively by being brought back to life against her wishes. Thus, through the above discussion, we can say Lady Lazarus is a confessional poet. Thank you.
Sylvia Plath is a confessional poet. And through the poems
Sylvia Plath is a confessional poet.
Through the poems Daddy and Lady Lazarus, you say that she has presented herself as a confessional poet, true to the tradition of confessional poetry that emerged during that period. So we have our next speaker,
Yes,
Vidisha. Vidisha is there? Vidisha is absent. So she was supposed to talk about feminism and Sylvia Plath, feminist poet. Rihanna, are you present? Rihanna is also absent. She was also supposed to speak on modernist, Sylvia Plath as a modernist poet. So I will keep this for the next day's discussion as a feminist poet and as a modernist poet, because Vidisha and Rehanna both are absent. Tanmoy, you are present? Tanmoy? Tanmoy will be speaking on, so he will make a dramatic reading of the poem, performing the role of the speaker. Yeah, Tanmoy, please.
Yes, sir, I am present.
Put your video on mode. Okay, and you are supposed to make a dramatic reading of the poem. Yeah.
Hello, sir. Am I visible?
Yes, you are visible, audible.
Okay, sir. Sir, today I will present Lady Lazarus by Sylvia Plath. I've done it again. 1 year in every 10 I manage it. A sort of walking miracle. My skin bright as a Nazi lampshade. My right foot a paperweight. My face a fearless fine jewel linen. Peel off the napkin. Oh, my enemy. Do I terrify? Yes, yes, sure, professor. It is I. Can you deny? The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth. The sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon the flesh, the grave cave ate will be at home on me. And I, a smiling woman. I am only 30, and like the cat, I have 9 times to die. This is number 3. What a thrash to annihilate each decade. What a million fragments the peanut crunching crowd stoves to see. Then unwrapped my hand and foot, the big strip tease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. My I may be skin and bone, I may be Japanese. Nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened, I was 10. It was an accident. The second time, I meant it to last out and not come back at all. I rock shirt at as a seashell. They had to call and pick the worms of me like sticky pearls. Dying is an art like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it, it feels like hell. I do it, it feels real. I guess you could say I have a call. It's easy to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's theatrical, come back in the broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute. Amuse shut, a miracle that knocks me out. There is a charge for the eyeing of my scars, there's a charge for the healing of my heart. It really goes, and there's a charge, a very large charge for the world, or a touch, or a bit of blood, or a piece of my hair, my clothes. So, here, doctor, here, enemy, I am your opus. I am valuable. I am pure gold, baby, that melts into a streak. I turn and burn. Do not think I underestimate your great concern. Ash, ash, you poke and steer. Flesh the bone, there's nothing there. A cake soap, a wedding ring, a gold feeling. Here, God, here, Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair and eat men like air. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tanmoy. Excellent voice, excellent recitation. Performance was okay. The pauses, the words. So you were Lady Lazarus performing the poem. Do you
Yes,
think
sir.
that you were Sylvia Plath or you were Lady Lazarus? Which one?
So in this, I was Sylvia Plath, as it's a confessional poem.
So I'm giving you two options. Number one is Sylvia Plath. Number two is Lady Lazarus. Which one?
So in this poem,
So when you were
yes,
reciting
sir.
as number A Sylvia Plath or number B as Lady Lazarus.
So I was reciting as Lady Lazarus.
You were reciting as Lady Lazarus. So
Yes,
this
sir.
is the most remarkable point of this poem, the most remarkable modernist element of this poem, because this poem maintains strict objective correlative, whereby the poet has created a character, a dramatis personae of Lady Lazarus.
Yes, sir.
Is a woman who is speaking her own condition in a confessional mode. This poem can also be considered as a feminist poem. So this is a dramatic monologue. The form of the poem is like this. Lady Lazarus is a dramatic monologue where we have the persona named Lady Lazarus delivering a speech where she uses a confessional autobiographical mode of narration to tell about her condition.
Okay, sir.
So while reading the poem, while reciting the poem, did you feel that this is a poem of celebration or pathos of pain?
So this is a poem of, so this is a poem of both celebration and pathos.
So
So
you are talking in terms of contradiction. You are saying celebration as well as pain. So is the
yes, sir.
poet, is the speaker, Lady Lazarus, celebrating her pain?
Yes, sir. The speaker, Lady Lazarus, is celebrating her pain. Through her pain, she wants us, matlab, she wants to convey that she will return to the earth again.
Thank you, Tanmoy, for your excellent presentation, reading of the poem.
Thank you, sir.
So, Sudeshna, are you there? Sudeshna? Sudeshna, you're not there? Okay, Bishwajit, you are there? Bishwajit? So, Bishwajit was supposed to speak on the use of symbols drawn from Nazi concentration camp. So, Bishwajit was there, he appeared, but again vanished or what? Bishwajit, are you there? No. So if you start absenting from the classes, how can classes continue? So as I said that, what is the form of the poem? The poem is written as a dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is a form of poetry where we have a character or a persona addressing the speech to someone imaginary who is supposed to be present in front of the persona. So unlike a soliloquy that we often find in the plays of Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, especially Shakespeare's Macbeth contains soliloquies where the speaker speaks to himself or herself, as Lady Macbeth does or Macbeth does in Shakespeare's play. Unlike a soliloquy, unlike a mental soliloquy, dramatic monologue is spoken aloud, not to the self, but to an imaginary persona who is supposed to be present. Here, the imaginary persona, the listener to the speech made by Lady Lazarus, can be regarded as number one, the characters who are imagined to be present, like the doctor, the peanut crunching crowd. Number two, the readers of the poem. Through the reading of the poem, we are also listening to the speech by this lady, Lady Lazarus, and through that we become the addressee to whom the poem is addressed. The dramatic monologue is usually addressed to imaginary persona. The speaker is single, and when the delivery of the speech is done, because the presence of the audience is assumed by the speaker, in some cases the response of the audience is also suggested. And throughout the poem, we find such response of the audience suggested by the poet. The response also suggested by the poet we find in this poem. So this is the form. Like Shakespeare's sonnets are also dramatic monologues. Personal first-person narrative is there, but there we can identify the speaker with the poet persona. In case of a dramatic monologue, the presence of this imagined persona who is speaking the speech is more foregrounded. A set of object is laid. Emotion is built around that object. And the subject that is created by the poet, the dramatic persona that is created by the poet, delivers a speech. Excellent example of dramatic monologue we can find in Robert Browning. Robert Browning's Porphyria's Lover, My Last Duchess. These are excellent examples of dramatic monologue. Even T.S. Eliot's poem, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, is a dramatic monologue. So Sylvia Plath belongs to this very rich modernist tradition of using dramatic monologue as a technique of poetry. And she adds the confessional mode of narrative in this dramatic monologue technique. So she starts with the personal, then turns this personal story into a mythical story, into a public story, into a universal story. And that universal story then turns into something personal again. So this is a cycle of the dramatic monologue created by Sylvia Plath, a new type of narratology that she is developing in her poems. Bishwajit was supposed to speak on the symbols drawn from the Nazi concentration camp. So we will listen to Bishwajit next day, what he has to offer us. And we will also listen to Sudeshna. Sudeshna was supposed to speak on the use of objects to describe human body. So there are so many objects in this poem that are used to describe the human body. The exhibition, the exhibitor, or the exhibit, all these are combined together. And this dramatic monologue allows the persona, Lady Lazarus, to exhibit herself to a crowd, to a set of readers. So can I make my point clear? So we have now Dianjali. Dianjali, are you ready with your performance, or shall we postpone your performance again? So I asked Dianjali to make a full costume performance of the poem in the voice of Sylvia Plath, focusing on the speech act, on the exhibition of pain, and the final raising or rising of the dead from the ash. Dianjali, are you present? So Dianjali has also left the meeting. So I found that three aspects are there in this full dramatization. Number one, the use of the speech act. Number two, the exhibition by an exhibit Lady Lazarus of her pain. And number 3, the final raising from the ash. With red hair, she wants to come again. So there is a resurrection at the end of the poem. So all these 3 specified forms of performances are used. So Kushal, you are there? Kushal Paul?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Kushal also had a very excellent voice modulation and had a very good recitation yesterday. So I would like to ask Kushal to speak on the use of hospital imagery in the
Yes, sir.
poem. So there is at the center of this poem, Lady Lazarus, the exhibit. She is in the hospital and she is exhibiting herself. So Kushal Pal, please begin your presentation.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir, and all my dear friends present here. I'll be presenting.
Kushal, can we
Yes,
see
sir.
your face? Can we see your face?
Sir, there's some technical problem in my phone, sir.
Okay, continue.
Yes, sir. So I'll be presenting a speech on Plath's use of hospital imagery in Lady Lazarus. So Sylvia Plath wrote Lady Lazarus in 1962 during a creative burst of energy in the months before her death by suicide in 1963. In the poem, Plath reveals that she wants to die in order to escape the profound suffering caused by living in an oppressive male-dominated society. But every time she wanted to commit suicide, her efforts were all in vain. She was forced to come back to life, and each of her revival felt as if a peanut munching crowd were watching a carnival. This, in a way, somewhat annoyed Sylvia Plath, and she, through her poem, also warned her enemies, which were the very people who saved her life, that she will return, and at that time she will eat men like air. There's a sense of disgust as well as anger and a mixed feeling of hopelessness through her poem, felt through her poem. Now, the ideas and realities relating to death and specifically suicide are something that is not easily or readily discussed by most people. They are the issues discussed in dark rooms with hushed voices. They are the topics of our fears and sometimes our deepest desires. One author that breaches this taboo of sorts is Sylvia Plath. She excellently represented confession through her poem Lady Lazarus, and she also painted a clear picture of suicide with the use of imagery in her poem. If viewed from a different perspective, one might also say that Lady Lazarus, Sylvia Plath presents Lady Lazarus as a poem in which autopsy is being conducted on the central character. That is, her face feeling like a featureless finds you linen, or her right foot feeling like a paperweight. That is, at the time when she was alive, she was not so much noticed by men or the other people. But at the time when she had died and someone is performing an autopsy over her, that very person is frightened upon seeing everything that is present in front of his eyes. Furthermore, the redness that is described, that is her skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, this implies that her face is red and her skin is also red, and this red is not any other kind of red but gushing red, the very red that was used in the Nazi flags as well as the armbands worn by the Nazis. So these are some of the hospital imageries found in Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus.
Thank you, Kushal, for your analysis of the use of the tropes, metaphors, and images that are there in Sylvia Plath's poem. These tropes and metaphors that create the poem, give the structure to the poem, are drawn from various sources: mythical, political, contemporary, historical. The use of hospital imagery is, of course, the central set that is there in this dramatic poem, in this performance poem. the speaker persona, Lady Lazarus, imagines herself in a hospital bed. So after taking pills to commit suicide, a surgery is conducted on her, and after the surgery, she has become a sick person lying on the bed. From the from the shell, the pearls are taken out, and the doctor is there present before. So the autopsy is conducted not on a dead body. Usually autopsy is conducted, as Kunal said, is conducted on a dead body. Lazarus myth talks about the return from the land of the dead. Here Lady Lazarus also returns from the world of the dead, brought back not by Jesus but by a doctor. So doctor has done this miracle by bringing the patient, Lady Lazarus, back. And in this hospital, we find the presence of sterility, presence of whiteness, sterile whiteness. The hospital image is reinforced throughout the poem. And we have such brilliant lines made by the poet in this poem that as a seashell, they had to call and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. So she says that I have been doing this again and again, the act of committing suicide. And I come back again in the same place, same face, same brute. Anyone can see what is happening to me. And through this use of hospital imagery, she wants to show the peanut munching crowd, how she looks like. So this is a kind of striptease that she's talking about. She shows off her hands, bony hands, skinny hands, her knees. She says that I have become skin and bone. And this unwrapping of Lazarus in Bible was also unwrapped. The linen that was there on him was unwrapped, and the real Lazarus was shown to the public. Lazarus also died at the age of 30, was brought back from the land of dead. Lazarus went on living for 30 more years, so 60 years of life, and after returning from the dead. So even Jesus Christ said that this is my last act of miracle. And after that, Jesus Christ did not perform any miracle, because by bringing this man from the dead, he also made human beings aware that this is, of course, a miracle that can only take place only once. And the teaching that he is offering to mankind is about belief and faith. So Lady Lazarus has also come back to life, brought back by the doctor in a hospital chamber, and now being seen by the visitors who have come to see her. The same visitors who were indifferent, peanut munching crowd, indifferent to her suffering. They have all come here and looking at her body. She is being called by different names in the public glare. So this gaze is very important. The gaze of the relations, the relatives, gaze of the public, way of seeing Sylvia Plath as Lady Lazarus on the sick bed. Thank you for your excellent presentation of the theme of the use of hospital imagery. So we move on to the next speaker today. Shushmita was supposed to perform. Shushmita, she has...
Sir, I will perform to the next day.
So you are supposed to make some props, the objects, because these objects are used.
Yes, sir, I have some props, but not the lampshade, but I will make with the newspaper.
Okay. So with the help of these props, we will try to understand the poem better. So our next presentation will be by Shohini. Shohini, you are present. So she will make her presentation on the act of self-exhibition of pain. Self-exhibition of pain. Shohini, are you there? Okay, Shohini has also vanished. So you are taking this as a task or as a Game. Which one? I thought that this is a game. It will be more interesting for us to understand a poem. Autopsy of a poem, Lady Lazarus. So Kushal's autopsy is conducted on the poem. So can we conduct this autopsy on the poem? Exhibition of poem is the central content of the poem. But the exhibitor is not pitying on herself. There is no self-pitying. Rather, she is triumphant. She's at ease exhibiting her pain. Her entire anger is against the peanut munching crowd. Peanut munching crowd, you understand? Crowd of visitors, crowd of relatives who keep on poking their nose in our private affairs, talking a lot about us, even more than what we think about us. Interference in the private life by the public. She is protesting against this. This objectification of a human being into an object of exhibit is the cause of pain to the poet. And the poet is writing her protest against this act of conversion or transformation of a human being into an object. There is a double jeopardy in this case because the human being presented here is also a female. So at the age of 10, just after the death of her father left her at the age of 8. So she had accidentally committed suicide and she returned back to her life. At 20 again, because of disentanglement, she tried to escape this pain of life. But she found that returning back is more painful than this attempt of taking the life away. And like cat, she has 9 lives. She will return again and again, resurrect again. But once one has encountered death, that person does not fear death anymore. This triumph over death is a positive message given by Sylvia Plath. In spite of all the pains and sufferings, human beings must assert individuality, dignity, and demand respect, even respect to one's own privacy. This is what the poet is asking the readers, to respect her privacy. So Neha Mondal, you are present? Neha Mondal? Neha Mondal is also not present. So Neha Mondal was supposed to present on the use of death ritual in the poem. So death is theatrical in the poem rather than normal. So if death is presented in a highly ritualistic and theatrical manner, it becomes almost farcical. The exhibition of death itself in Sylvia Plath's poem has turned into the most farcical act. And once this act is related to the horror of the concentration camp during the period of Nazi uprising in Germany under Adolf Hitler, she is turning this into a universal statement of human suffering, the agonizing ritual of death performed in the concentration camp. The tropes drawn from the Nazi concentration camp abound in the poems like Daddy and Lady Lazarus. So we have this in this poem. So death is ritualized. It is seen or presented as a part of human existence. Shoaib, you are present? Shoaib
Yes, sir.
Shoaib Khurshid,
Yes, sir.
talking about Sylvia Plath's use of language. Shoaib, can I see you? I am seeing a joker face. So I want to see your face.
Sir, this is not Joker, this is Noddy.
I know Noddy is dressed as a joker, clown.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Shoaib. So make
Yes,
your
sir.
presentation, make your presentation. use of language.
Yes, sir. I start.
Yes.
Lady Lazarus by Sylvia Plath is a very complex poem, both in terms of form and content, and we believe special attention should be given to the poem's language and style. In Lady Lazarus, Sylvia Plath is playing with language extensively, mostly through the use of metaphors and symbols. For now, we believe that it's very important to mention the collective metaphors related to Holocaust and Nazism, and the way in which Lady Lazarus sees herself as a terrorized victim of the Germans. Beside the metaphors related to Holocaust, the poem also has imagery related to the circus or the acting world. There, the poet plays with language by depicting herself as a naked and exposed victim, a freak whom the insatiable crowd wants to see and touch. Lady Lazarus is a bit, is a bitter dramatic monologue, famous for theme of death and oppression. It was published in 1963, 2 years after her death by suicide. The poem gives hint to multiple suicide attempts of the tormented speaker. Sylvia Plath was a diverse array of stylistic devices in Lady Lazarus, among them allusion, apostrophe, extended metaphor, and irony, in order to develop the speaker as a character. Those three poetic devices are particularly evident in lines 65 to 79 of Lady Lazarus. Finally, the poet also plays with the language through the imagery related to death, graveyard, and decaying corpse. Also, the title of the poem can be related to death, as the author uses biblical character of Lady Lazarus an inspiration for her poem. However, this choice is very ironic, as Lazarus was a firm believer in God, while Lady Lazarus solely believes in herself. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shoaib, for your excellent summation of the topic, presentation, the use of language. So, would you think that this is a modernist element, the use of language? Modernism is characterized by the conscious use of language. So, Sylvia Plath,
Yes, sir.
yes,
Yes, sir. Because there is metaphors, apostrophe, and we also say there is soliloquy.
okay, the speech act is there. It is dramatic monologue rather than soliloquy.
Sir, it
Because,
is dramatic monologue.
okay, and the language you said that it is also modernist because of the use of so many figures of speech.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Figures of speech can be seen in the works of earlier poets also, but here the difference is related to the use of language in a very conscious, performative form. So the words are being challenged. So this is poetry, where we have the fixity of word challenged by the poet. A poet usually takes the word not at its face value, not on the Facebook identity of that word, but tries to see the profundity of the word, tries to trace the levels or the layers of meaning of the word. And there Sylvia Plath is a master because she's using a lot of symbols in the poem, and with the help of figurative devices, she is using language very consciously. According to
Sir,
TFS,
she is also
yes, continue.
sir, she is also using the art of feminism in her works.
So you want to say that the language that she is using is the female language, the language of the female. That is what you are saying. French feminism talked about the use of a different language for the female. Here, Sylvia Plath is using the voice of the female, and even in the use of language, using the confessional mode, she is much more closer to the female diction and female language. Thank you, Shoaib, for reminding me this. So our next
It's
speaker,
my pleasure, sir.
okay, our next speaker is Follow Me. Follow Me, she is absent. She was supposed to present on the use of visual image. Follow Me was supposed to present a discussion on the visual imagery in the poem. So throughout the poem, we have so many visual images that we can see. Do you remember what type of images are there in poetry? There are 6 types of images in poetry that are organically perceptible or organically sensed. What are these 6 types of imageries? 5 images are related to our 5 sense organs. So visual image is related to sight, olfactory image related to our nose, so gustatory imagery related to our taste, to our digestive system, olfactory, then we have auditory imagery related to our listening perception, ears, then we have tactile imagery related to our touch sensation. And the 6th one is the kinesthetic imagery, the imagery of supersensation, the imagery of movement. So apart from these organic images, we also have the use of several types of object-based, theme-based imageries, concept-based images in Sylvia Plath's poem. So I expected Follow Me to make a presentation on the use of visual imagery in the poem. Do you agree that Sylvia Plath is an excellent poet because of her use of visual images? So our next speaker is Pallavi. Pallavi, are you present? So Pallavi has again disappeared. So Pallavi was supposed to present Sylvia Plath's use of self-exhibition as a form of protest against public gaze in the poem. I repeat the topic: Sylvia Plath's use of self-exhibition as a form of protest against public gaze in the poem. So it was 1962, so much earlier, when this entire web technologies did not develop. Yet the interference of the media in the lives of people was there during that period, especially the reviewers, the critics, the broadcasters, BBC broadcasters. They were all interested in the lives of the poets. The life of Sylvia Plath was much troubled during that period when she is composing this poem, because of her intense romantic relationship with another great poet, Ted Hughes. 2 great poets with their own individuality, coming together, collaborating, contributing to each other's creative journey, was not accepted by the critics, by the contemporary media in positive light, and they could not separate the artist at work and the person at work. So these are 2 identities, the artist and the poet. In order to understand poetry, are we required to understand the personal life of the poet? So Sylvia Plath is commenting against this through her poem. Maintaining strict objectivity, the entire facade of subjectivity that is there in the poem is contradicted by the use of the dramatic persona in her poems. Even in the poem Daddy, where she is using the voice of a daughter, there is extreme form of dramaticity, theatricality in the representation of the speaker. And through this creation of a daughter, who is not only Sylvia Plath, but also the daughters of the world, who are talking about the hegemony of patriarchal oppression in their lives and the struggle against such patriarchal oppression, trying to liberate themselves, their feminine self, their artistic self, creative self, from the tyranny of patriarchal oppression, is presented through the dramatic persona of a poem. So this poem, Lady Lazarus, also celebrates the triumph of the artist rather than the triumph of the person. Although the confessional mode has been used, it is the artist who is speaking to the public. The art here is life. Conversion of life into art is poetry. But in Sylvia Plath's poem, we find that this conversion of life into poetry is stretched beyond the point of human endurance. The female is objectified, turned into an object of display, of exhibition, of surgery, of autopsy, and Sylvia Plath turns this into a statement, a loud advertorial statement on the condition, on the plight of the female in human societies. So our next speaker is Amber. Amber, are you present? So Amber is again absent. So Amber was asked to speak on the use of metaphors in Lady Lazarus. So we will try to list the metaphors in the poem and allow Amber to speak on the metaphors in the next class. So let us go through the text and try to make a list of the metaphors that are used in the poem. So you also can underline the words that are metaphorically used. So first is this Nazi lampshade. Nazi lampshade. Number 2, paperweight. Number 3, napkin. Number 4, grave. Number 5, cat. Number 6, the exhibit, striptease exhibit. Then we have the imagery of the symbol of rock shut, shell, seashell, sticky pearls, worms, death, theater. Theater is also used as a metaphor. Miracle, fees and charge, scars, word. Word is also used as a metaphor in this poem. Blood, hair, clothes, ash. Then we have a series of metaphors: soap, ring, wedding ring, gold filling, and finally the resurrected image of a red-haired person. So these are the major metaphors that are used in this poem. So we will wait for Amber, if Amber can say something on metaphors in the next class.
So, what is the thing to which Nazi lampshade is compared?
So Nazi lampshade usually was made up of skin that was extracted from the body of the Jews. So the dead body of the Jews were disinterred from their graves, and the skin were used for this lampshade. So this is a popular myth that revolved around the concentration camp. Hitler was much demonized by the Western media, and much of the atrocities that were committed by Hitler during the Nazi uprising from 1933 onwards. A lot of Jews were brought into a concentration camp and they were victimized. And it is said that from their body parts, so many things were created. So it was a kind of shock that was given to the Jewish population, whom Hitler accused for the economic misery of the land. So this concept of Aryan, blue-eyed Panzer man, or the racial superiority of the Aryans, of the Germans in Hitler's Germany, at the cost of the extermination of the Jews. Nearly 10 million Jews were exterminated during the period of the First World War and Second World War, during the period from 1933 to 1943-45. So nearly 10 million Jews lost their lives during this period of the Second World War. So the Nazi lampshade refers to that. The light is there, but the skin that is used in the lampshade is extracted from the human body. So Sylvia Plath, anorexic in the hospital bed, just with skin on her body, with little flesh and only bones, resembles that tortured inmates of the Nazi concentration camp. In Sylvia Plath's poem, we have the woman as a born slave who has been captured by the patriarchy, kept in the concentration camp, tortured to death, forced to commit suicide. So this is not the self-annihilation, but rather annihilation forced on him. So this is suicide by consent, by public pressure. The body has turned in the hospital into a skin and bone structure. And she is talking about this. If you watch some movies on the rise of Hitler, especially Steven Spielberg's famous movie Schindler's List, you will find the inmates of the concentration camp. And if you just browse the Google, you will find the images of the Jews in the concentration camp that caught the...
Sir,
Yes, Shoaib?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, during when Sylvia Plath's writing, her contemporary poets are in favor of Hitler or against Hitler, because there was an uprising of Nazis.
So we have to remember the chronology of events. So Nazi uprising started from 1929 with the rise of Hitler, and the extremists went on in the 1930s, 1930. So Sylvia Plath is born during that period. Okay, and she is an American poet.
Yes, sir.
She had seen the atrocities through the eyes of the expatriate Germans who have taken refuge in Germany. Expatriate Germans who were forced to leave Germany, mostly the Jews who have to take shelter in United States. And through the eyes of these victims of the Nazi uprising, she had in her childhood seen the atrocities of the concentration camp of Hitler. But writing the poem in 1960s, she is of course against the Nazi uprising, against the entire concept of racial discrimination based on religion, based on the color of the skin. She is a poet of protest. And she is now comparing the condition of the female in human society with the condition of the Jews in the concentration camp of Hitler. That means Hitler stands for the dominant patriarch. Even in Daddy, we find this. Oh, do not do, Daddy. So she is kept in the shoe, and this shoe that represents the patriarchal structure where the shoe bites, and yet you have to fit in with the structure of the shoe. The shoe also kicks you. So this patriarchal torture on the female is compared with the extremities of cruelty that were done on the Jews by the followers of Hitler. So this is anti-war poem. This is anti-Semitism that was practiced by Jews by Hitler. Anti-Semitism. So this is a poem that foregrounds anti-Semitism, hatred against the Jews, as a central trope, as a central metaphor. The female condition is compared to the condition of the Jews, who were exterminated, killed by the followers of Hitler. So we move on to the next theme, next topic of our discussion today. So Amber is not present. So our next presentation will be by Sana. Sana, you are present? Sana came, appeared, and then disappeared. So she was supposed to speak on the use of similes in the poem. You know what similes are? Figures of speech based on comparison with the help of as, like, so, but. These are the words used. So this is your task, to identify the similes in the poem. Most of the similes are drawn from hospital, from Nazi concentration camp. So Sana will make a presentation on the use of similes in the poem in the next class. So we have Orko Provo. Orko Provo has vanished. So Orko Provo was supposed to speak on the topic on the concluding section of the poem. So towards the end of the poem, what happens? Out of the ash, I rise with red hair. She's the promise. That is the promise she's making. The poet is making this promise at the end of the poem. So today, the last presentation will be by Bipasha. Bipasha has been assigned the task. Yes, Bipasha, make your presentation, please.
Yes, sir. Shall I start then?
Yes, yes. You can switch on your video.
Sir, I don't have much net balance left.
Okay, okay. Continue.
In Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus, readers may find it very hard to understand the meaning of the poem. Like in the poem, the author is trying to portray a meaning deeper than what is being said. In Lady Lazarus, Plath uses tone, imagery, and symbolism as well to describe her obsession with suicide, being the meaning of her life, the life brought back to her after trying many attempts to kill herself. First few references she uses in defining that suicide has taken place come in her second and third stanzas, on the lines where she says that my skin bright as a Nazi lampshade, my right foot a paperweight, my face a featureless fine Jew linen. So in these lines, her reference, it is referred to her skin. She likens it to a Nazi lampshade. This represents the blood that has been shed to do some kind of self-inflicted wounds. Of course, the blood from a wound like this would be red and very vivid in hue, that acumen. But much like the red that the Nazis used in their flags and armbands. This is then representative of how she would have become weak from her blood loss that she suffered and would have trouble moving her extremities. Then this paints a clear picture of the subject's pale skin, which is completely normal when there has been heavy blood loss. Then Plath goes on to give further clear imageries of her attempts to end her life as well. Then, sir, the lines 21 to 24 of this poem also gives us the imagery of death. Like it's easy to actually see and feel how sad and angry she is about her attempts. she tried to commit suicide, but she was saved every time. She likens her lifespan to that of a cat, a life that does not allow one to die for the first time. Then Plath even goes as far as to say that her suicide is a trash. This is evident in how she goes on to write that her suicide attempts thoroughly ruin every decade of her existence. Then finally, in the lines 37 to 42, she mentions that how her second attempt was almost successful, but somehow it got stopped. But even though she would indeed wanted to die, the imagery used in lines 39 to 42 further paints a picture of her unsuccessful attempt, saying that she rocked shut like a seashell, and this implies that she was clinically dead. She even details the failed attempt further in saying that they had to keep calling her and then had to pick up the worms like those from the sticky pearls. And then, what more, sir? I would like to say this much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Bipasha, for your excellent analysis
Thank
of
you, sir.
imagery of death in the poem.
Yes, sir.
So imagery of death is a conceptual image. So I categorize imagery into two types. One is organic imagery, the second is conceptual imagery. This conceptual imagery can be object-based or concept-based. So death imagery is concept-based, represented in this poem through a series of objects that are drawn from the ritual of death, a series of objects that are related to the entire ritual of death has been imploded in the poem. And therefore, we have a very rich texture of visual image that shows us the exact representation of the entire process of death. And Bipasha has excellently presented that picture of death that is there in this poem. So what is imagery? Imagery is simply the painting, visual painting that has been done with the help of words by stretching the limitations of the word, by extending the limitations of the word, by infusing the words more meaning and more poeticity. So the poetic metaphors contribute to the meaning of the poem, especially the representation of the theme of death with the help of death imagery. Thank you, Bipasha, for your excellent presentation. So we have so many scholars, intellectuals together discussing on a major poem, Lady Lazarus. And by now we know almost everything what the poem is about, except what Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus wants to make us aware of. So we need some more discussion on this poem, some more tasks given to the students they are supposed to present. So we will meet again when? Tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So every week, at least twice a week, we should meet so that we can have some intellectual exchange. Yes? So I conclude the class today. It's almost 1.5 hours. 1 hour 15 minutes. So we conclude it today. So we will meet again as soon as the tasks of the other students are complete. We will again join together. So any question? So would you like to ask any question regarding the discussion that we had today? So you have your friends with you all. So you can help each other understanding the poem and start writing your own answers on the topics that we have discussed in the class. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Stay
sir.
healthy and fit.
Thank you for your presence. Ask your friends to join the class. So no shame, no blame. We're all learners. We are learning the intricacies of a poem. Making an autopsy of a poem is very difficult. And once we learn the art of autopsy of a poem like Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus, half of our job is done. Thank you very much for participation. So see you again. Thank you very much. Bye. Tata.
Thank you, sir.
Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Bye.
Thank you, sir.